Konichiwa! Good morning, everyone. Welcome to VidCon Now Asia. This is part 6, I think, and we're coming to you live from Japan, Singapore, and Toronto. My name is Jasper Donat. I'm in Singapore. This week, we are continuing our look at the creators and companies who are making it around wonderful, wonderful Asia Pacific. As we have said many times before, Asia is huge, multiple countries, languages, cultures, religions, and regulations that differ wildly by country. So far, this tour has taken us to China, India, Vietnam, combined populations of over 2.5 billion people. All of our speakers have talked about how brands and creators have been connecting their content with local audiences, local languages. We've talked about relevance and we've talked about authenticity. Now we are heading to Japan. With 125 million people, Japan is Asia's largest entertainment marketplace and home of so much global culture, including tech, fashion, anime, video games, cool cars, and more, and certainly making it one of the world's coolest countries. Yesterday, by the way, I don't know if anyone knows, marked the 100-day countdown to the delayed Olympic Games, so 99 days to go. Today we have two fabulous speakers to take us around Japan, and we're going to meet them both one by one before coming together at the end to take your questions. So please, if you do have questions about Japan and how to succeed in the land of the rising sun, please do send them in, get them in the text box, and they'll be fed to us later on. Soon we'll meet Alan Schwartz. He's the CEO of Breaker and well known to many people as the gateway to the Japanese market. And then we'll meet Martina, a Canadian YouTube star who's been living and creating in Korea and Japan for many, many years. But we want to take a deep dive into the Japanese market and open the door to any ideas and business opportunities for anyone interested in this wonderful country. And before we start, please remember, we always want to hear your feedback. Who would you like us to interview, and what would you like us to talk about? And you can find me easily at Jasper Donat out there on the World Wide Web. So Martina and Alan, we are going to start with Alan first. Good morning, Alan. Konichiwa. As I said, you are known very much as the gateway to the Japanese market. But please tell us who is Alan Schwartz? You're in Tokyo today, but who's Alan Schwartz and what is Breaker? And actually, before we go into that, why don't we look at a very, very quick video of Breaker?
大家好，我们是无限开港。
Very cool indeed. So Alan Schwartz, who are you? And we've just seen a quick minute on Breaker, but give us a little bit more information. Who are you and who is Breaker?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's good to see you again. Good to see Martina again. I'll start with Breaker. We are a global brand studio connecting the world to Japan. Our main thing is helping global companies launch and build their business in Japan. We also do content. We've produced feature films, long form series, YouTube originals, Disney Plus, stuff like that. We also work with many talented creators around the world, including Martina, in telling stories about Japan to audiences around the world, and a lot of social media stuff, campaigns, account management, etc. I'm Alan. I am 50. I'm a Scorpio, type A blood type, born in the year of the dog, if any of that matters for people who want to do compatibility checks. But I was born to an American father, a Japanese mom, grew up speaking English and Japanese, worked at MTV/Viacom for about 20 years. Half of it was in New York, half of it was in Tokyo, but it pretty much have spent my entire life personally and also professionally kind of stuck in the middle of Japan and America and the rest of the world, right in the middle of a culture clash. And I think that's kind of where I thrive and find meaning.
So we have a Scorpio dog being interviewed by a Scorpio monkey. So what could possibly go wrong? And how on earth are you 50, Alan? You talked about break, and we're going to dig down into the Japanese culture and certainly the culture of creators and social media and online video and stuff. But before we do that, let's take a very high level view. What's going on in Japan, specifically in the context of the media landscape? What's hot? Which platforms are there? Is it international? Is it local? Is it a mix? What's going on in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, Japan, it's, just like the rest of the world, it's still COVID, still sucks. But I think over the past year or so, there were encouraging signs that Japan is still despite the aging population and despite COVID, it's still a big market in media and entertainment and social. And it's also a market that's changing for the good. There's, signs of disruption and evolution happening. So kind of to be a little more specific, the big things are, in movies, the biggest movie ever happened during the pandemic. Demon Slayer animated movie was, the biggest movie ever. It was also the biggest manga and the biggest book of the year. So you had this like rare monoculture moment where everyone in Japan was basically, reading or watching Demon Slayer. Same thing in gaming. The Animal Crossing became the biggest game ever, surpassing Super Mario. So again, despite the aging population and people, more and more people like me over 50, things that are, skewing young, like games and manga, et cetera, are being consumed at volume. And then maybe some signs of disruption that are positive. I can probably talk about, things in music and video and advertising. So in music, the biggest song of 2020, according to Billboard Japan, was a song by an artist named YOASOBI. And as everyone probably knows, Japan is a very physical CD-centric market, but this was the first time a huge hit like that was not released as a CD. So the digital transition is definitely happening, very symbolic, in the music scene. In video, Netflix announced that they surpassed 5 million subs in Japan, which is not a huge number, if you compare it to other markets, but it is big in the Japanese context. It is also big compared to the biggest cable operator in Japan, JCOM, the biggest satellite carrier in Japan, Sky Perfect TV. Each have only about 3 million subs, I think. So one SVOD platform have surpassed these, legacy platforms. So a huge milestone. Amazon actually has, more than those two platforms combined. And it makes sense that more and more cable channels are actually starting to live stream their channels on Amazon Prime. So again, in video, disruption happening. And then finally, in advertising, it was 2019 that digital ad spend surpassed TV spend in Japan. But it was last year during the pandemic that Dentsu, the traditional advertising agency, the giant in Japan, their market cap was surpassed for the first time by Cyber Agent, which is kind of the digital version of Dentsu, if you will. So Japan's still big, but changes happening, and I think it's been accelerated by COVID, definitely.
So, I mean, there's some amazing facts in there. I mean, that the fact that Japan was you mentioned music. Japan really was. It was a strange market because it stayed very much in the physical world. It was always about CD sales, and streaming hadn't really kicked off. But like you said, the streaming really has taken off. And does that go into things like podcasting as well?
I think, yeah, I think it's starting to happen. Obviously, with things like Clubhouse, also so podcasting, and I guess audio social platforms are definitely starting to get traction. But maybe I can give a little more context about the music industry. It is, like you said, the second biggest music market in the world. It's very CD centric, which is actually kind of misleading, because it's not that most of the population is still buying CDs. That figure is actually being propped up by just a handful of artists, mostly idols, who are using CDs not as discs to play music with, but it's usually a collectible. So you'll need to buy all 5 different versions of a CD in order to access bonus content or get access to concerts. So it's being commodified in a different way, so I think that's definitely on the wane. 2020, the physical digital ratio became 70-30, 30% streaming, which was I think a 10% increase on compared to 2019. But what I find interesting about the music industry is that there is a huge fan economy in Japan, which is, I think, very unique to Japan. Every significant artist and celebrity has a fan club, sometimes with millions of paying members who pay annual fees to get access to a lottery to buy concert tickets, or to get access to swag or premium things. So that's already happening. And then you kind of add on top of that a category of companies in fan tech, as they call it in Japan, who are democratizing fan club operation, so that any individual, even if they're not part of a giant talent agency, can run their own fan club, manage their own database of user information, and engage directly with fans. And then the last few months, everyone in the world is talking about NFTs. So moving all of that to like blockchain and using NFT to engage with fans in a more data-driven way is all happening. So yeah, they're very, very interesting.
It's fascinating how fast Japan really has. I mean, I know we talk about music from analog to digital, but really how fast Japan has progressed. Let's talk about the platforms in the context of VidCon. The online video platforms are really of most interest here. Is it a local market? Is it an international market? Who are the big players? Who are the big players in Tokyo, in Japan?
Sure. Maybe I can talk maybe separately about streaming video and then social. Similar but different. In streaming video, it's very, very crowded. Every national TV network has their own paid platform where basically only content from that channel is available on those platforms, and then they collectively run a platform called TVer, which is actually by monthly active user metrics is the most popular in Japan. So this is all very, very local. And then there's also obviously the Amazon, Netflix, Hulu is actually a Japanese company technically. Hulu Japan is a subsidiary of Nippon TV. So that's kind of a mix of global content and local content. And a couple of interesting other platforms are in streaming video are Unext, which is a Japanese company. They just recently announced a exclusive distribution deal with HBO, so that should give them an edge. There's a sporting, kind of the Netflix of the sports, if you will, called DAZN, a European company, and they've basically bought up all of soccer and baseball. So that's obviously huge. But in terms of content, most of the content consumed is Japanese. I think the top 10 titles on Netflix Japan that they announced were interestingly, not very Japanese. Well, it was Japanese, but mostly animation. And then what was not animation was mostly Korean dramas. So yeah, it's very scattered, and obviously Amazon and Netflix are kind of the two biggest platforms right now, but I think it's going to get even more interesting because every platform is investing in original content. And then on social, the global platforms are obviously the ones that have significance in Japan. I think the order of popularity or active users goes YouTube, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think that's kind of the sequence. Twitter, interestingly, is the second biggest market outside the U.S. There's probably something culturally about how concise communicating on Twitter is, and just the brevity of Japanese communication and haiku, and some grad students probably working on a thesis like that somewhere. But above all those platforms, the most popular is Line, the messaging app. The monthly active users, I think, is 86 million, which is almost like 3/4 of the Japanese population. It's kind of a Japanese platform, but they're technically part of the South Korean neighbor family tree. And everyone uses it. There's a ton of additional apps on top of Line, like Line Music, Line Pay, Line Tickets, etc. And it's changing the way most people communicate in Japanese, which is all through like stamps. And I get ridiculed from friends and family because I have a very small stamp vocabulary. Yeah.
And so tell me, obviously multiple platforms, multiple formats. Is there a dominant format out there? Is it short form, long form, or does it depend on the platform?
I think it certainly depends on the platform. The streaming video platforms, the most popular local content is seasons of TV dramas, and most of them, right now have spin-off content that it lives exclusively on the digital platform. So that's a nice accommodation for people to kind of binge on. TikTok is huge in Japan as well. So that's that kind of micro content is also popular. So yeah, it's hard to say what the winning formula or the format is, but it's people are consuming a lot of content.
And for the creators themselves, you were talking about how important language is, and that it is a very local market. Is it a mostly local creator market too? Or are there international creators that are succeeding in Japan?
Yeah, yes and no to your question. It's a very local market. Japan, or Japanese, is the operative language in Japan. So in order to get access to a mainstream audience, you would obviously need to speak Japanese and be able to relate to Japanese audiences and kind of where they come from. So very challenging for an international creator or artist to resonate. However, there are a small number of creators like Martina who have found success in Japan, and it's a different kind of success because it's not necessarily a Japanese audience that they're finding. In Martina's case, and she can kind of explain this much better than I can. But if someone has a global fan base, and if you're in Japan and have a unique take on Japan, you have your own story to tell, and you're funny and intelligent and a good storyteller like Martina is, I think you can become this kind of correspondent from Japan, a cultural ambassador in a sense, and your friend who lives in Japan and is doing all these interesting things. So I think that is definitely a good formula for success, and we work with many people who do that in many languages in Japan and are telling stories about Japan to a global audience.
So being there is absolutely important.
I think so. It's not essentially. I don't think it's essential, but yeah, there's yeah, there are certain things like experiencing cherry blossoms, or or eating late night ramen as we have that
As we
they're used so
have.
specific for.
And I've got two more questions before we meet the amazing Martina. But we've talked in previous episodes of VidCon Now in Asia about the rise of e-commerce in certain markets, like China, for example. Has e-commerce as a creator platform really hit Japan's shores yet?
I don't think so. My understanding of what's happening in China is that you've got a lot of these live streaming platforms and influencers who are, for lack of a better expression, they're kind of like QVC talent, right? They're like shopping channel talent. And they're promoting products and getting compensated. That hasn't happened in Japan, but something that's happening that's similar but different is the live streaming platforms, or the liver community, as they call it in Japan. So these are platforms like the biggest one being 17 Live, which is I believe called Live It overseas. And on these platforms, you have young people who are basically just talking into their phones and talking to their fan community, and they're getting compensated with gifting. They're basically working for tips from their fans. And I think this is all very close to the loyal fan mentality that makes these fan clubs happen in Japan, and you will always overpay to get anything from your favorite artist or liver, and these people are doing over tipping so that these guys can be a professional creator. I mean, one interesting also thing trend that I noticed during 2020 was that more and more celebrities are doing YouTube channels in Japan. So, and there's a cottage industry of production companies that are helping celebrities produce YouTube content. So the bar is getting higher and higher to find success on YouTube and to find an audience in Japan. That said, on a platform like 17 Live, all you need is an iPhone and a dream. It's definitely kind of separating the community.
And final question, Alan, and on the subject of questions, please, everyone out there, do send your questions in. We will get to them at the end of the session. But Alan, how are creators monetizing? Is it a traditional advertising model, or are there new ways? You mentioned a lot of gifting going on. So how are creators monetizing themselves?
I think it's all of the above. So, obviously, YouTubers are making money from AdSense, and also from direct, sponsor deals. There are, gifting opportunities. If you set up a fan club with some of these fan tech club platforms, you can charge people for any type of thing, for meet and greets, to exclusive swag, etc. Again, so kind of going back to my thing about NFTs, I think there is already a huge monetizable and monetized fan community in Japan. So it's just a natural progression and probably a quick transition into using blockchain and blockchain technology, and using NFTs to just kind of supersize this for professionals to amateurs alike.
Excellent. So we'll be selling this as an NFT soon on the Tokyo market. But Alan, thank you so much for the first part of this. We're going to say goodbye to you for now, but you're going to come back at the end. So again, any questions from anyone wanting to know how to get into Japan, we can ask Alan at the end of this session. But thank you, Alan. We'll see you in a short while. Up next, I want to say a very, very big, wonderful, gorgeous konnichiwa to Martina. Now, Martina, konnichiwa. You are normally in Tokyo, but where are you today?
Yes, I normally am in Tokyo. Currently, I am in Canada, in Toronto. So because of COVID, came on back. I'm living and helping out my mom right now to get through this whole bumpy stage, and I am aiming to get back to Japan. So a little bit of a break.
Well, thank you for joining us. I know it's not very late at night, but I know it's in the evening your time.
It's
We'd like to understand.
9:30 p.m.
You're ready to go out, right? If you're allowed to go out. So what we want to kind of get to is how international or overseas creators can succeed in Japan. You're Canadian. Let's hear a little bit more about who you are. What's your story, and how have you built a fan base in Japan?
Sure. I'm going to try to condense it because it's quite a long story. I'm running one of the longest running YouTube channels on the internet. So in 2008, my business partner Simon and I, we were in South Korea, and we decided to start this YouTube channel. And this was before YouTube even was considered to be a thing, especially in Asia. It was not even being talked about. And we were looking around. There were so many things about Korea that we wanted to share with the rest of the world. So this was a global audience. We were actually quite amazed that we were even interested in the things that we were interested in. But I felt like, no, you know what? We need to make some series and some segments. So after we scripted out a bunch of things, we would kind of do a 7-day-a-week schedule. And to fast forward you, it went really well. We ended up building an audience that was interested in living in Asia and kind of didn't have a chance to see what it was really like, because when I tried to look it up, I couldn't find any information. So YouTube was the perfect platform for this. We ended up quitting our jobs, getting business visas, opening up our own studio. It was actually the first YouTube studio in Korea, and I'm pretty sure we beat Japan to it too. So that was really exciting, and that kind of allowed for many more business opportunities. By having a studio space and hiring a staff, I was able to focus on different branches of business. So we were able to open up a coffee shop. I was able to work on a merchandise line, and I do all the design work, and so I could print it from the studio and pack it up and send it out. We ended up doing world tours. So we went around Europe a couple times. We've been around Asia, North America, Canada, and specifically America is actually when we ended up meeting Alan at VidCon. And that was when we were in a bit of a transition stage, wanting to live and experience life in Japan. So after about 8 years, we ended up meeting with Alan, met with other people as well, didn't find anybody as attractive, not just physically Alan, very good looking for his age. I really liked the way his company worked. I liked his attitude. I felt like we would work really well with him. So we made the big jump and we went to Japan. So it's been 5 years in Japan. Absolutely loving it. We reached a whole new level of what we wanted to do video-wise, focusing on high-end food, going into sushi restaurants and ramen shops that before never allowed anyone to film in, not even local people. So there's definitely a lot of stuff I want to talk about to help people understand, how did we get this foot in the door? How were we able to do this kind of stuff?
You're also making me very, very hungry as well. A bowl of ramen right now would be fantastic.
I'm wearing my food outfit as well.
So Martina, let's talk a little about the content, but also how have you built your fan base in Japan? Is your content in Japanese? Is it in English language? Do you have it translated? How have you built that fan base?
So the fan base in Japan was kind of accidental, because although I was studying Japanese, it was specifically focused on food only. When I was living in Korea, I had 8 years to learn the language. So I was easily able to read the menus, communicate them in English while speaking to the staff and getting to know them in Korean. But then suddenly you're landing in Japan and you have to kind of go, right? You already have an established YouTube page, so you don't have the time to learn. So I was basically crash course learning all this kind of stuff. And what I discovered is that food videos that you put in towards the food videos is what allowed me to start to develop a Japanese audience as well. I was running into more and more Japanese people who didn't actually speak English, and they would stop me and say, oh my gosh, you're Martina, and I love your ramen video, or I love the sushi saito video. So food was really, connecting with them, and the way that we were respectfully treating it, instead of just arriving like a tourist, who didn't know what was going on, I would pre-plan, pre-study. I would take weeks before going to each location so that I could understand exactly what the chef was trying to communicate. So it's kind of bridging that gap between what the Japanese person wants to express and then what I want to express and how to get that across to the audience. So I think that started to develop more of a relationship with Japanese people to see that, serious about food. It's not just a quick fix for money. It's actually something that I love, which I do.
And doing what you love is a what a wonderful way to build a career. Let's we have lots of people watching from all over the world, and if someone wanted to launch their career in Japan or start doing more in Japan, what tips could you give for overseas creators wanting to come in?
One of the first things I'd say is you do really need to understand and respect the culture. So I've definitely had some YouTubers that came to visit in Japan, and I would have to explain to them in advance, you don't put your tripod on the counter, you never lean past a certain level. So some people kind of arrive and they want to get all the shots at all the locations, but they don't really understand that there is a code of conduct. There's a way that you need to interact with people in order for them to not feel upset and offended, because Japanese people won't say anything. Like, they're not going to say to you, like, get out of here, idiot. Like, they're not going to. So I think you really do need to learn a little bit about the culture, understand what's important to them, observe before you start filming, get to know the people at the shop, even if you don't speak the language. Just showing up a couple times. And that's how we first started to film in a lot of locations. Just being there, being present, and slowly being like, hey, do you mind if I film something? And then they trust you by then. So it is a slower process than, let's say, being in North America and just like going in and saying, I'm a YouTuber, can I film here? And they're like, okay. It's a bit of a slower speed.
And what about connecting with the Japanese fan base? Is language really important? I mean, is it better to be communicating with them in Japanese, or is there a good understanding of English? And the reason I say this is because obviously it is Japanese is the spoken language, but every single major music star on the planet wants to go and perform in Japan, and they will sing in their mostly English language. So for you as a creator, or for overseas creators wanting to connect in Japan, how important is speaking locally in Japanese language?
I think it depends on what your goal is. So there is no problem with speaking English or singing in English, like you said. There is also a bit of an interest from the Japanese side to get to know Western culture. And when I say Western, I mean Australian, European, Canada, America. It's that same thing. We want to get to know Asian culture. They want to get to know Western culture. So it's okay to speak English. When it comes to the scale of people that speak Japanese, I'm on like the baby end. There are so many other YouTube creators out there that put their content out there in Japanese. But if you do that, you are specifically narrowing your audience down to only Japan. And then if you're talking about Japan to Japanese people, they go, yeah, I already know this. So by speaking English, you're actually having a different perspective on Japan that you can bring them. And I've had a lot of people, whether they're Korean fans or Japanese fans, say that they, got to know English, or they're getting to know real colloquial phrases by watching. So the same way that I might watch a Japanese drama, they're watching us and learning things as well. So I think it's okay if you don't speak Japanese, but I do think learning to at least read menus or read blank, like whatever it is that you're aiming to do, review anime, talk about J-pop. I think it's helpful if you know a little bit of the language so that you can communicate, especially when you meet fans on the street. They really appreciate that.
Another question for you now is around working with brands and advertisers and sponsors. So many creators have a great relationship with in that market. How important are brands to Martina?
To be honest with you, I think a lot of time creating my own brand. So, I did the design work behind all the clothing that we sold. I have a new brand now called King Kogi, and that one is actually jumping away from the concept of just eat your kimchi, eat your sushi, which is the name of the channel. This is just my own self, like, what do I want to draw? So by having a community that's been with me for so long, I'm able to actually do what I want to do for them. So I'm not as interested in wearing someone else's brand. I pretty much live in the clothing that I design because I like the clothing. So I want to wear what I design, right? But what I will say is that I do really like working with like-minded companies when it comes to a long-term plan. For example, when I was working with Breaker and Allen, I loved being able to work with a company that might want to do something with ramen, or something that they want to take you to a prefecture, a city, and they want you to explore their city, like working with the Japanese government. These kind of deals I really like because you're creating more of a long-term relationship and a trust relationship with these people. But for me, my major income source is not just brands. I work with, YouTube revenue plus my own business of creating clothing and selling that. So it's not 50-50 for me. I would say brands are important, but I'm not going to give up what I think is important to me just to advertise a brand, if that makes sense. You have to be true to what you believe in yourself.
So authenticity is really important.
So important. I mean, look at all
I
the
guess
creators
probably
that are out there in the world now.
and nowhere more so in Japan as well. Alan was talking about the number of different platforms and channels, and how the world has gone digital, certainly on the music side, but also the different formats and what have you. Is there a set format that you work with? And the second part of that question is are there any new formats that you're testing out or investigating?
Oh, for sure. To jump to the second part of your question, I'm definitely starting to get more into the live stream world. I do think that that is extremely helpful at this time period because of COVID. We're lacking that connection. As somebody who is used to meeting people on the streets or having fan meets, connecting with your audience and your community for me is critical because you are built on your community, right? How can I last since 2008 on the internet when there are so many more hot people, hotter than me, more talented than me, better doing what they're doing? Like, there's so many things. You need to have that community base at the bottom. And so I think that live streaming is, again, authenticity. You can't really fake it. You are who you are. You make your dumb mistakes. You accidentally pick your nose on camera, and you create kind of a vibe between them. So I'm going to be moving into a new segment soon where I'm doing a creative cookbook. So I have so many recipes that I've been doing online for years now, and I'm going to create the cookbook live with my audience. It'll be kind of an interactive thing. If they suggest, you should make a turtle eating brownies, then I'll try drawing a turtle with brownies. So that kind of interaction between the audience. And then, wait, what was the first part? I've already forgotten it.
What do you have a fixed format, and what new formats are you testing?
Yes. So fixed format, I would say I just do a lot of pre-planning. So I tend to organize what I want to do in advance. I check out the location. I check reviews online. I read Google. I read blog posts. So even though you don't see that in the final video, that is part of the video, and that's part of the format of putting this video out there with confidence and saying, this is what I'm filming this week, and here's why I'm filming it. It wasn't just something that I thought up last night in bed. And I tend to do a lot of humor, if you can't tell, in my videos. So the general format is humor, entertainment with education. I kind of want to bring that all together in a nice little ball and have you leave feeling happy. I don't want it to be serious and upsetting to anybody. We don't need any of that anymore.
No. And final question for you. And this is a question that's come from the World Wide Web. Someone called Emma has asked, what do you see? Now, you've lived in Korea and Japan. What do you see as a creator is the big difference between being in Korea and Japan?
As being a creator, or looking at the two countries?
As being a creator. Looking at two countries is a whole different episode.
Yeah, I mean, you really do have to get to know each culture. So there are different ways that when you meet a brand in Korea, it involves a lot of drinking, bonding, noraebang, singing. You have to get to know that side of Korean culture in order to make connections with people. And then in Japan, of course, you have karaoke, and you do have going out to eat but there are also other ways that you might be meeting and interacting with different brands or different people. So each culture has different trends that are on the go, different K-pop groups that are, super hot in Korea, but not as hot in Japan, or super hot in Japan. So by being in each separate culture, you have to really immerse yourself in it. You get to know the lingo, you have to get to know the slang, you have to be able to have kind of an upbeat conversation with people. So I think that each culture has its own differences, so it's kind of hard to explain it without actually being there. And now I'm totally probably out of touch with Korea, right? Like the bands that I know are like so last year, except for BTS, who we gave the Rookie Award to in our studio because I knew that they were going to be big deal.
And did you buy an NFT at the time? Martina, it's been absolutely gorgeous speaking to you. Now, don't go away because we're going to bring Alan back and we're going to have a chat with both of you. And anyone in the World Wide Web, please get any more questions in if you want to learn more about Japan and how to succeed. So hopefully we'll see Alan. There he is. Alan, we had a question for you from one of the viewers. We've been talking about what's cool for people in Japan. What outside of Japan is cool for young people in Japan?
I mean, this is going to sound kind of cliche, but K-pop is interesting. And K-pop is interesting in the Japanese context because the biggest K-pop artists in Japan, I think, are big because they are doing local stuff. So an artist like BTS is re-recording some of their biggest hits in Japanese. They even have some songs that are exclusively in Japanese. So a different way of engaging with the Japanese audience. Also, I think on the K-pop end, that was something that was very interesting last year was JYP created a girl group called Niziyu. So this is a group of Japanese girls produced by JYP. So they are technically K-pop, but they're Japanese. So K-pop is no longer about singing in Korean language or the members being Korean. And that's only gonna, I think, evolve and be more interesting. So I would say that anime is sorry, yeah.
That's inside Japan. Yeah. What's cool coming in? I mean, just so anyone who doesn't know, JYP is one of the top, in the top Korean music production companies.
Yeah, he made Wonder Girls, 2 p.m., 2 a.m., and himself with his clear plastic pants. If you want to look it up, everyone, Google JYP clear plastic pants and be traumatized.
That's good. It's good at 9:45 in the morning. It's interesting when you talk about K-pop and J-pop and what have you. Is that not so long ago, J-pop was by far the dominant music in Asia Pacific outside of the local markets, right? And K-pop was unheard of, and now J-pop has kind of been overtaken. It'd be interesting to see if J-pop does make a resurgence. There are a lot of people investing in J-pop at the moment, so that's perhaps for another conversation. If there are any more questions coming in from the World Wide Web, I'll to both of you, and maybe Alan first. For an overseas company, and then Martina, I'll ask you the same question for overseas creators. But for overseas companies, what do you think are the largest challenges for coming into and succeeding in Japan, Alan?
I think it's communication, not language, because many people in Japan understand English, and there are companies like Rakuten who have made the official company language English, and in real-time AI translation is already happening. So being able to communicate or speak to someone in English to your potential Japanese partner, that's obviously very easy, getting easier. But the ability to speak English or a good English pronunciation does not mean you're a good communicator. And furthermore, speaking good English does not mean that you could actually do things in Japan that you're presenting in English to your potential global partner. So I kind of, because we do a lot of these cross-cultural projects, it is kind of like an international marriage, and you have to work on the relationship, and you kind of have to start from the point that you are fundamentally different, and you fundamentally do not understand each other. So you have to take the time to over-explain, give a lot of context, and just spend a lot of time talking to each other, because there's just so many things, time difference, cultural difference, and just different expectations on speed that will just get in the way of smooth working relationships. So communication, I think, is the big thing.
And same question to you, Martina. What do you think are the biggest challenges that overseas creators face getting into Japan?
Mm-hmm. I think it's similar to what Alan is actually saying. So it's a combination of understanding what exactly the brand or the company working with. Get something simple like, oh, they want me to film a video at their restaurant, but that may not be exactly what they want. They might want to be showing you how much work they put into their broth, right? Like their ramen broth, like that might be so important to them. But if you're looking at it from an outside perspective, you might be perceiving what they want from the perspective of a creator who lives in North America. They want glamour shots, they want this, they want that, but the company might be like, I really hope you can show people how important these 3 different fish are. And then you might say to yourself, oh, this isn't pretty or this isn't important. But then you're cutting out something that's critical and important to them that they'll feel like you didn't show properly. And then you won't, have the door opened again to do other deals with other companies or other situations. Because I would say, Alan, you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but companies do talk, they do kind of like share their experiences with other restaurants and things. And so you can burn a bridge if you do the wrong thing. And they're obviously a very, very polite culture, so they're not going to say it to you. So I do think that taking that time to research, if you get hired by somebody or you're trying to be hired by somebody, look up the city. Find out where it's from. Find out what their city's flower is. Find out what sake is about. Learn about it. Like, know what you're going to talk about before you show out, so that they actually know that you're not just going to be there and disrespecting the moment or the culture or whatever you're trying to film. Pre-planning. That's all I can say.
That's interesting, because that goes back to what Alan was saying about understanding each other as well. And he was talking at a very macro level, and you're talking at a very micro level. And it's interesting that it transcends from at those two levels. Okay, so here's the last question. We're going to start with Alan and then give the final word to Martina. But Alan, I said at the beginning of the show that Japan really is one of the coolest markets on the planet. I love going to Japan. I'm fortunate to have been there many, many times. And I've even been to the Hamster Cafe, and I've been to the Cat Cafe, and I've been to World Cup finals and all this kind of stuff. But what is the most, to you right now, Alan, and to Breaker, what is the most exciting thing about Japan, whether it's cultural or business or both? What excites you the most right now?
Maybe this is a little too macro and abstract, but it does feel like times are changing and things are changing. There's a lot of disruption, and things in media, entertainment, tech are all kind of coming together, and kind of forming a kind of a hybrid, fusion culture. A lot of it is, has elements of East and West, and to me feels like Japan is becoming more and more Eurasian, like myself, which is obviously personally, makes me feel comfortable, but also, professionally, I feel like just because, I've kind of been in the middle of, culture clashes all my life, that, given how, things are coming together as they are, there are things that I could do to, help the process.
And then final word, Martina, what is exciting you the most about Japan right now?
Okay, well, I would say that because I started out in Korea in 2008, and for both of you living overseas, there's a difference between entering a country in 2008 when they've never seen a foreigner and there's nothing in English, and you're like struggling from the base level to like, communicate. And then I go to Japan, where, like Alan is saying, I'm definitely seeing much more play between different cultures. One of my favorite shops ever is in Kichijoji. It's a taco stand. It's like this big. You can fit 5 people in it. This guy learned how to make real tacos, cornmeal tortillas from YouTube. He's a Japanese dude. He never left Japan, and he makes the most bombastic tacos. And so I'm seeing this like mingling of the preciseness of Japan. He's making a couple tacos with Japanese flavors, but the rest of them are like traditional. And I'm like, how did you do this? And we're all mingling and talking. He's doing bio wine. I'm like, what is this? So people might have a very narrow perspective of Japan being like sake, sushi, ramen. But no, when you start going down the alleyways, when you start going to the right parts of the city, you're discovering that Japan is just as interested in other parts of the world as we are. And then if you get to join in with that, you're kind of like this weird little, bridge between Japan, Mexican, Martina, Canadian, Korean, Japan, and then the rest of the world. So I just can't wait to get back and go back to exploring again and finding these little shops and just sharing them with the rest of the world and encouraging them, once it's safe enough to travel, to get to Japan, just jump on in.
That's fantastic. Well, I could talk to you both for a very long time, and hopefully one day soon we will be in a ramen shop or a noodle bar or a sushi, eating sushi
Hunger
together,
centers,
drinking sake and singing karaoke. But we're out of time. But I, as ever, I've been writing lots and lots of notes. So I just wanted to say thank you to Alan and Martina. Here's what I've learned. Times, they are changing. It's now becoming a very fusion culture, which is really exciting considering how big that market is, the entertainment business. There's a lot of disruption. There's a lot of local platforms and international platforms. Japanese content obviously is by far and away dominating, but things like Korean drama and K-pop we were talking about are really making a big impact. It's important to be there, but you don't have to be. Gifting is coming for the creator community. The bar is getting higher to find success. NFTs are coming. Do what you love. And interestingly, doing it in English language is okay. Because if you try and do it in Japanese, then you've got 125 million people to compete with already. We talked about K-pop. We talked about lots of other things. But I think the most important point here, and this is going to stay forever, is that success comes in understanding each other. Whether you are at a local level in a local local ramen restaurant, or whether you're doing a massive global deal between two countries. It's about understanding each other. So I wanted to say thank you again, Martina and Alan, for taking us around the wonderful country of Japan. And I say I look forward to seeing you in person somewhere soon. Thank you to everyone who's been watching this session. Again, VidCon Now Asia will be back in 2 weeks' time, where we are appropriately heading to Korea, where we are looking at more K than just K-pop. We have Eugene, the CEO of Collab Asia. We have Diva Jessica, extremely successful YouTube star in Korea. And we're very fortunate to have a big K-drama star and producer, Sean Dulac, joining us. So that's in 2 weeks' time. So please look out for that session. But thank you once again for joining us today.